everyone, how are y'all doing? So this is the look that I created based on my editorial look. I kept that picture in front of me and I kept staring at it to try to make it as wearable as possible. But a tip quickly before we move on to the video, you have to be willing to push the boundaries, like a little color here, a little more blush here. As you watch the video, I'll give you tips on how you can push your boundaries a little bit, because I think that's so important generally, not only in makeup but generally in life. Like, you have to be a bit of a risk taker. Anyway, I hope you enjoy watching this video and stay tuned for more. Before we move on, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Let's begin, shall we? I'm taking this Tom Ford foundation and I'm working this onto my skin all over in a very light layer and paying attention to areas where I have any kind of uneven skin tone. For color correction, I'm using this VASANTI corrector, and with a fine detail brush, I'm just using this into areas wherever I have any kind of pigmentation. With this product, I like to blend as I go, so I keep placing it in these areas where I have the pigmentation, and with light strokes, I just keep blending out that corrector. Just like my previous video, I'm going to use this HOURGLASS foundation stick and go over those pigmented areas that I have, which is mainly around my chin and on the sides of my cheeks. I started bronzing my skin with the Charlotte Tilbury powder, but then I realized I'd rather do my concealer first. So with the concealer, I use my Born This Way concealer, and with a flat brush, I just tapped this product wherever I needed it. And I even took it down the sides of my nose, and this is a great tip to slim down the nose. I then went ahead and finished my bronzing. To start off, what I did is I blended this into my hairline, which I felt was very important. Following the top of my ear, I blended out the bronzer just to lightly sculpt and sort of bronze at the same time. With that same brush, I went under my jawline, and just to elongate the nose a little bit more, I joined the tip of my brow and the nose contour a bit, and I went with a little bit of bronzer down my chin. This is the NARS Soft Matte Concealer and my shade is Ginger. With this fluffy brush, I just tap the product at the back of my hand to warm it a little bit, and then using the brush, I just tapped it on all the areas over the concealer just to brighten under the eyes. I also took some of that onto my forehead here. If you go in with too much product, you can just go in back with your foundation brush for a more seamless blend and tap it onto that concealer. And with whatever was remaining on the brush, I took it on my chin to bring it forward and just chiseled out the bronzer a little more. With a medium-sized brush and the same Charlotte Tilbury powder, I'm just kind of trying to straighten the look of my nose, and I'm going from under as well. I am loving this base right now. To set the concealer, I'm going to use this Too Faced Peach Perfect powder. Remember to dunk the sponge and tap away any excess powder, and then make sure you blend out all the concealer that is collected in between your lines and lightly tap with the puff. This is a great way to set your concealer, but just make sure that you always remove all those creases. And I also like to go on the sides of my mouth because that's where I have a few fine lines, and that sort of locks it in place. To intensify the bronze, I'm just using this Chanel bronzer with a large brush. I think this is the blush brush from Real Techniques. And I feel like this bronzer has the perfect amount of pink and bronze, and it just gives the skin a nice healthy glow. And I'm just using this all over the places where I placed the bronzer earlier. Now to conceal all the pigmentation on my eyelids, I'm going to go in with that same Born This Way concealer and just blend it on my lids. If you go in with a little extra, you can just use your finger to blend that excess away. This is the same Morphe palette that I used in my video, and this is the same pink that I'm going to take on this medium fluffy brush and tap any excess behind my hand and use this as like the base shade of the eyeshadow. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other eye. But I wanted to quickly show you what blending looks like in real time. Like, this is how slow blending usually is. I mean, the more you practice, the faster you become. Now I'm taking that same pink blush shade on a dual fibered brush, and I'm lightly tapping it in the shape that I want the blush to be. The dual fibered brush gradually allows you to deposit color. So if you're kind of scared of these looks, try to use a brush like this because you can stop when you feel like. I'm now starting to take the blush into more of a C shape starting on the temples and, bringing it back down the side of the cheekbones. Also, this is how loose I hold the brush. By continuously tapping this brush in the shape that I want the blush to be, it just allows me to gradually deposit more color and add more intensity to the blush. Onto these areas, I want to darken the blush a little more just to give kind of like a blush sculpted look, and take a tiny little bit on your ears just to tie everything together. Trust me, it works. With whatever is left on the brush, I'm just sweeping it across my forehead, taking a little bit on the nose and a little bit onto my chin. Once I was satisfied with what my blush looked like, I took a brush like this one and I just started packing on the color onto my eyes and, going into tiny circles, blending it out, depositing more color, blending it out. Just make sure that you have the intensity that you like. Time for some liner, and this is the Gouache Espresso Kohl pencil. It's basically a medium brown, and what I'm doing here is just drawing a small brownish wing on the outer third of my eyes. I tend to have a lot of lid space on my left side, so my wing on the left side always has to be a little more thicker than the other. If you ever struggle with wings not pointing in the same direction, I have a small tip. Work some color onto the tip of your pencil brush and gradually, with short brush strokes, angle the color as symmetrical as you possibly can with the other side by looking straight into a mirror. Time to do my lashes. Here I'm using the Sarat eyelash curler and I'm just bouncing it at 3 different angles. This is how slow you should go. And be careful because sometimes you can pinch your eyelid skin, like just what happens here. This is the Bad Gal Bang Mascara. I applied about 2 coats of mascara to each eye, and if you know me, you know through most of my videos that I don't usually use false lashes. So I think for a nice impactful mascara, this works. Once you're done with your lashes, the contrast of the mascara really helps bring forward anything you have to go over again. So in this case, what I did is I went over my blush again, darkening it around the areas that I want to push inside. I also went with some of that blush around my temples just to darken them a little bit because after all, this look is inspired by that editorial look that I did. Since I darkened that blush, I also had to darken my eyeshadow a bit, so I went in with the same brush and the same pink and I deposited some color into the outer V and even close to the crease, and I kept blending as I go. We finally reached the part where it is time to push your boundaries. Think of it as a calculated risk. If you are confused where to place the pop of color, take some on your little finger and place it around different areas of your face or your eyes to see where it looks best. Actually, this is a great tip to see if the colors actually go with each other. I decided to go with the inner corner, which, by the way, is the safest place to place any pop of color. This is the Ritual de Fille Creme Luminizer. The experience of this product begins as soon as you open the lid of this luminizer. They are a wonderful cruelty-free brand that is based out of California. Ghost Light is the shade that I'm using here, which is an iridescent opal. For brows, I'm going to go in with my Anastasia Beverly Hills Slim Pencil and this clear brow gel. I like to elongate the lash, so I extended the outer corner a little bit. When you brush your hairs down, you expose all the sparse areas of your brows, so you can then go in with your pencil and draw in hair-like strokes. And once you're done with that, you can move on to your other brow. That's what I did. Once again, I started working on the most outer edge of my left brow. Once I was done with that, I just brushed the hair upwards, and this allows me now to work on the bottom part of the brow. And then I set all the hairs in place with that clear brow gel. This is the MAC lip pencil called Soar. With this lip pencil, what I usually like to do is overline my top lip a bit, and when it comes to the bottom lip, I only like to overline the very center. After this, I join the rest of the line to the outer corners of the lips. To diffuse the lip liner and give the lips a softer pout, I went with this pencil brush and I just lightly feathered out that line. Same as my previous video, I used the Hell's Bells color from Charlotte Tilbury, which is a nice sort of rosy berry shade. And using the same brush, I applied the color all over my lips. I wanted it to look more blended instead of just like a block of color. To give the illusion of slightly larger lips, I went with this Makeup Forever pencil just on my cupid's bow and in the center of my lower lip. Time to refresh this makeup. I chose this Smashbox Primer Water and literally drenched my face in it, and then I gave it some time to dry. Once all that setting spray has dried, I'm going to take this Charlotte Tilbury powder and lightly tap it onto areas that I want to blur and set. Around my jawline, I usually like to buff it into the skin in tiny circles. Whereas on my forehead and under my eyes, I like to use the flat side and lightly tap the powder onto those areas. So this is the finished look. I hope you guys try to push your boundaries a little bit like I explained in the beginning of the videos. If you haven't watched my editorial video, I'm just gonna link it up here. But thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Stay tuned for more and bye.